Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Liu Zhang. I'm a training consultant from the Information Lab.
Hi, I'm Jos, and so today Leo and I will talk about our top tips for passing Snowflake's SnowPro Core Certification.
Yes. So in the Information Lab, we do quite a lot of service with Snowflake now. And as a training consultant, me and both Josh were quite interested in the Snowflake, and we actually spent quite time to do the SnowPro exam, the certification. I'm glad that we both passed. So here we're here to share some tips.
All right, so let's get started.
Go for the tips. All right, I'll pick the first point. The documentation. It's a software. You literally have to read it. Because it's reasonably new, so there's not as much like YouTube tutorial to teach you all things. If you want to really go for the exam, they do go for a lot of technical details, which I think the documentation helps a lot because it really tell you, particularly like different string type, number type, what kind of value you can take, what's the size for that type, the variable car, I think. Oh, those are niche ones. Particularly, I think it's those gray box, because the exception case, they do actually test your knowledge on those as well. For those things, usually when I first read it, I skipped it. I tried my first exam, I failed. I go back. I went back, read again. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I agree with that totally. If you want to get a better understanding of the theoretical topics, especially because Snowflake is a cloud platform, you'll definitely want to have a read at their documentation if you want to pass the exam. But also, you want to make sure that you're going into the documentation with a focus. So, looking at the exam study guide for the certification itself, it'll actually just tell you which topics that the exam will cover. So you're not just going into the documentation blindly. You actually have some focus as well.
Okay. Yeah, we can always talk about. We welcome any people leave some comments in the video. We will try to answer those as well. Yeah, let's go for the second point.
Yeah.
Josh?
So build a good foundation. So what I mean by that is that if you're like me, who didn't have much knowledge or hands-on experience with SQL or cloud computing or data warehousing in general, then I would definitely recommend just familiarizing yourself with these concepts first. Otherwise, you're going to have a hard time just diving straight into learning Snowflake if you don't have a good foundation on those previous concepts already.
Mm-hmm. I think I would probably it's very similar to you because I didn't have like a SQL background when I coming. So learning SQL isn't too bad, but it's actually understand the infrastructure in the background.
Yeah.
I think that's what the documentation started to help a bit. Because quite often in the exams, they don't actually test you how to use the select statement.
Yeah.
But they will probably test you like use copy to load the data into it. How does a copy like a put operate? Those type of questions.
Yeah. And I think your next point here is definitely going to help with getting a bit of that experience as well.
Which again, 21st century, you try to learn anything, hands-on's the best.
Yeah.
Read documentation is fun because even in the Snowflake documentation, they give you sample code. You can always copy paste run it, but you notice you never learn anything because it always runs. But once you're actually in the job, you try to run a command, you realize you get an error. I think you probably learn a lot more from those errors than the working queries. Quite often you get an error, they can see, oh, let me go more specifically to documentation or more specifically on the forum to see what that error is. That probably improve your understanding. Oh, in the schema structure wrong, data type is wrong, etc. It helps me immensely.
Yeah. So my tip in terms of hands-on experience is the best thing to do is that if you don't already have access to Snowflake, you can make a 30-day trial account. So that'll give you, I think, $400 of credits which is free for 30 days. So definitely make use of that when you're preparing.
I think it's for people probably already have database experience. Snowflake will be quite intuitive to pick up, unless you try to do like an admin on the background.
Yeah.
Security setting, sure, that may be a bit extra learning. But for the general people, yeah, that free credits, sign on trial, that's probably the best deal you can get.
Yeah, I agree. So next is, I guess, following on from getting hands-on experience and reading the documentation. The next point is making use of Snowflake University. So that's another way of you getting hands-on experience. So Snowflake University is Snowflake's own resource for learning, and it contains, as you've guessed, hands-on guided workshops, but also plenty of videos that just give you an overview of Snowflake theory, and I believe they also contain some quizzes at the end of those short sections to test your knowledge. So it's always a great practice to have some small quizzes to get you prepped for the real thing before you take that certification.
Yeah, if there's a free resource, why not? Just go for it.
All right, let's move on to the next slide.
So webinars, quite often the documentation, it's like that's why I put these in such order. Sure, you can read the documentation, sometimes something works, but you may be interested in something a bit more complicated. You say different functions, how they link to each other, how that happens, maybe even in real life case studies. And I think that's what quite often the webinar from the community, they help us a lot. So there's a lot you can sign on, like Snowflake University. They should probably tagging quite a lot of videos they do, or you can go to the local events, check out on their website, community. I think Snowflake is trying to do quite a bit to push to expand their community. Personally, we're based in London, so there's a London, I think, Snowflake user group. They also have the whole UK Snowflake groups. But other than that, quite often I'm registered on the LinkedIn. They do have a constant supply of videos and a lot of training available. So if you got time, sign up for those. Check out.
Yeah. So I haven't actually used the webinars myself, but I had a quick look the other day, and they do cover a wide range of topics in those webinars. And you can just go through them at your own pace, and it's essentially having someone walk you through each of those topics, and some of them are recorded and just on their website. Again, the links will be in the description for anything that we mention in the video. So the topics can vary from essentially the very basics up to learning, for example, things about the data marketplace within Snowflake, or as well as how Snowflake can interact with other tools like Tableau, for example. Yeah, so definitely take advantage of those webinars. Okay, so my next tip is going to be take your time. So it is a lot and a lot of knowledge to go through. So you definitely should just learn at your own pace. But at the same time, make sure that you're learning something every single day. So whether you spend like 5 minutes on it, just reading a small topic, or 50 minutes or 2 hours, just make sure that you keep coming back to it. But as I said, take your time, but do make sure that you stick to that learning.
So once you learn something, what to do with it, then that's what the third point, create some short videos. It doesn't necessarily need to be the videos. It can be any like public content, because teaching is the best way of learning. I think in the information lab, we do quite good on this front. Literally, you're watching a video or listening to our video now. So once you start to even just a 5-minute video, you try to teach people a simple concept. It forces you to systematically think what you have learned about this topic, and try to present it to others. Ideally, Say you try to teach someone else, you start to understand properly. Do you understand the order correctly, the logic correctly, or the infrastructure they type correctly? Quite often you learn a lot more from that, because again, you try to learn from your mistakes. If you run a code, you say, oh, what's happened to that? Then you try to solve it. Oh yeah, great, solved it. Guess what? You learned something. You want to share about it. And plus, putting down in a video, a blog, it's easy to go back. You can always go find your own material and share it.
Yeah, no, definitely agree with that. I think like a great way to test your own knowledge is to try and teach people like what you've learned, and you you never know, they might ask you questions that you never even thought of, and again that'll just improve and build up your own knowledge of that whatever you learnt. And so my final tip into passing this certification is finding a study buddy. So what do I mean is that if you're like me who needs that bit of support with staying committed to a learning, what you can do is find an accountability partner to, well, either study with you and take that certification together. Doesn't have to be at the same time. You can go at your own pace, but just knowing that someone is also kind of like learning alongside you can be quite nice and just quite motivating. Or they don't have to study with you, but just having someone to help you stay committed to your learning. But yeah, I mean, just having someone working with you just can make the learning a bit more enjoyable and just help you commit to that learning just a bit more.
Yeah, you gotta have some. For me, I definitely need someone to chase me up on that.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you go home like, oh, what did I do with the extra hour? Netflix
yeah,
or learning.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so those are the common tips for like we would advise you. But I think we'll speak about probably 10 minutes. Let's try to give it a bit more personal questions. Because me and Josh, even though we are information lab, I think actually we did a Snowflake almost independently
Yeah.
until like when someone asking is like, oh, actually someone else did it. So like Josh, how long did it take to learn it? Like over a month, 2 months spread out?
So for me, I was actually on bench. So
Okay.
after my um P1, I was on bench, I believe, for almost a month or about a month, and I spent my first a week or a week and a half maybe just learning Snowflake. So I was literally stuck in front of my computer reading through the study guide, the
Mm-hmm.
documentation,
Mm-hmm.
and then my final few days, I was so I went through all the Snowflake University topics, just going through, getting some hands-on experience because I never really got that from my first placement. My only SQL experience was back in training in the DS, so I needed that extra bit of hands-on experience. And then after I've gone through the documentation, I've essentially just tried quizzing myself, and then when I felt that I was ready, I just took it, and I was glad that I passed. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it was a long a week or two of just studying for it, and pretty much nonstop.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that well, that's intense. I
yeah,
spread out mine. I just going home really bits by bits. I did go Snowflake. The university is pretty good. It at least gave me a overall scope, the things you try to go. Um, but I would recommend people if you get a chance to get some like sample questions, even like online, the Udemy or Coursera, those things. If
yeah,
anyone does off like sample course, if it's on offer, probably it's worth paying those to give a try to see like the style of questions to what you get, because I was like, once I tried the sample question, I was like, oh, I don't remember that from my
yeah,
learning. It helps a bit to fill your gap, but I think it's a bit overwhelming in the first time you try to do it because you don't know exactly
Yeah.
how deep you want to learn each topic.
Yeah, that's true, because the documentation is massive. There's a lot to learn, and you don't really know what's going to come up. So yeah, I was definitely quite nervous when I took it, just because you can do as many practice questions as you can, but the real thing is always going to be a bit different.
Yeah,
Plus the time pressure as well.
it
Is
was pretty
so
tight, I think.
yeah.
For me, I'm a bit more lucky on my placement because I got to Northern Railway, which they just started using Snowflake, so I can actually get my hands on to play with
Nice.
it. And it's because it just started, so they don't exactly have expertise in it. So I'm the person simultaneously learning, setting up. I can make things up, like a mess up, then no worries, delete that database, try again. So I think I quite liked it. And every time they want to implement new things, they say, okay, actually, give me time. Let me go read documentation. Then I know what I'm reading, rather than that blindly goes through systematically from the first page to the last page. But I would put up you, don't be worried. I failed my first try. It's just, no, I failed 2 tries. I was that was a bit greedy on it. Because I finished in the end of my training. I did get
Yeah.
some time. I tried to read Snowflake because I quite liked it in the
Yeah.
training. I read it and say, okay, I finished Snowflake University. Yeah, I'm ready. Just go try it. I failed it. It's like not too bad. I think it's like 750 to pass, 700 something.
Yeah. I feel like you were quite close for your first
I
try.
think it got 600 something. I was like, then I would feel like, yeah, I can make it. Just give me another week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried again. Like another week was like 500. Screw that. So yeah, I was like literally step back and say, okay, I'm going to do my placement. I actually 6 months placement, get a bit more chance. So I think that helped me a lot to space out, hands-on practice. Then I tried again. I was like, oh, glad I passed it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is it's not an easy one to pass, is
No,
what I would say. Yeah.
I think compared to other like certifications, usually they do like a 3-stage: beginner, intermediate, advanced.
Yeah.
Like Snow Pro is kind of like intermediate, the middle one already,
Yeah.
rather than beginner level.
Yeah.
So initially I was saying like almost like introduction to Snowflake service. I was like, why do I need to know that how many bits megabyte you can load into that single column? But apparently you do. Like, is there any like memorable questions that threw you off?
I can't think off the top of my head, but I just remember that you have to really have some hands-on experience with using the databases provided in your Snowflake account. So the preset databases, that's what I found that was like, okay, I didn't catch that at all when I was preparing, but it makes sense because you're using Snowflake, so you have to be able to um, have some knowledge on those databases.
Yeah, it's a bit both, I do think. Because for me, I do remember you have a variant and a VARCHAR.
Yeah,
Like how big is each one stored? Oh, wait a minute, which is which?
yeah.
I remember there also a question about like date mesh. I never even read it. I'm like, what's that thing? Um, you do have talk about say partners. They have a cloud partner, technology partner, service partner, quite a lot of partners.
Yeah,
I do find that that's a bit hard if you say never work that much in the industry
yeah,
because some like machine learning partner or like data loading, I never heard those companies before.
yeah,
I was like, wait a minute, do I literally need to know another 20, 30 companies just for sake of the one question?
yeah.
That was a little bit tough. Did you get those ones?
Um, I can't remember if they came up in my own exam, but I remember those questions being in Snowflake University for one of the
Yeah,
courses. That's how I knew them.
that's a long list to remember.
It's a lot.
It was a bit tricky. Other things I think like the different icons where can you click to say view your account information, usage, etc.
Oh yeah, the UI. So
It's yeah, you go for it.
no, it's probably one thing to, I guess, bear in mind now. I don't know if they've changed it.
Mhm.
So obviously we have the old UI, but now we have Snowsite as well.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they've updated the exam questions to include the new UI. So that's something to be wary of. Is that you might need experience with
Mhm.
using the old and the new as well, because both could come up. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
At the moment, I think they do push people to convert to the Snow side rather than
yeah,
the classic console. So this one we did a few months back. It's still the classic console layout. So I'm not entirely sure exact switch on it, but copy track both. It helps.
yeah.
But the thing, I find that's not things like some of the not as easy as others. I still like click icons. They make life easier.
Yeah,
But it's like can't be too fussy on that. But I do think I will still go back and point out documentation. Because I failed before, so I actually could say, oh, fair enough. I'm not going to skip anything. I'm literally going to systematically read every single one. Um, I think the good side is if you did read the whole thing, it make you easier for the next stage, like the architect certificate.
yeah,
Because literally that's all documentation. The exam guide for that is about read those 2 pages in the documentation. Then
yeah,
there's a lot of white paper webinar to watch.
yeah,
But for documentation, I click on it and say, oh yeah, I read that. At least now I know I can revise it and make it
yeah,
easier. So do invest your time though.
yeah. Definitely. I mean, it is the core certification, so um, it means that it's going to be the foundation if you do decide to go for the higher level, more specialized certifications like the data architect and things like that.
I do think that they probably come in more like data analyst, data engineering. I think they study like specialist pathway
Yeah,
as well. But yeah, it depends on what people's like interested in going for it. It's no problem. Yeah, that's a starting point for everybody. That's
yeah.
all we talk about it. What do you think? How do you think the TL? Do you think who's going to be like next person, next group going to be picking a Snowflake?
In InfoLab,
Yeah,
yeah. I don't know.
I think we should definitely do more like start a user group on that.
Yeah,
Because our ex-colleague, Chris Malin,
yeah,
yeah, he's quite active with the Snowflake community.
yeah,
He's the
yes,
data superhero now.
yeah. And
That's
I,
mm-hmm.
I think I saw that he's going to start making some weekly challenges maybe this month.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's something to look out for if you want to get
it's
better nice
Frosty
Snowflake.
Friday.
Yeah, Frosty
Frosty Friday.
Fridays. Yeah,
They just started because I saw him in the events quite well. He's definitely committed to the community.
yeah,
Because he started with Martin. I cannot remember Martin whom. It's
yeah,
from the information lab, the Netherlands office,
yeah,
another like database guru.
yeah,
So check out, join the community. Just be the first one, the foundation part of that challenge. Because, for us, information lab, we do Tableau Ultrix. So Andy's make of Monday, workout Wednesdays. They have Ultrix challenge yourself, data prep. We are quite keen on promote the community. And I think internally, when the training, it helps a lot to actually do it.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that probably gets some basic ideas what we have. Anything else you want to add, Josh?
No. Hopefully we've covered and given a lot of helpful tips for
Mhm.
everyone to make a good attempt at passing the certification.
Yeah. definitely, we looking forward to still the information about ourselves. We definitely try to contribute more to the community as well.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'm looking forward. Let's see what our next video as well. Just follow us. What's that slogan? Like, click, subscribe, isn't it, on YouTube?
Yeah. So thanks for listening.